Okay, you guys. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Hot Hustle Morning Show. I'm Jeneth Blackert,
And I'm Lyanca.
and today we're talking with Lisa Wetsel, and we're talking about how to truly navigate your new 5D reality. And I'm sure we'll hit on navigating your ascension, navigating just being uncomfortable and how to get out of that contracted nature as well. But before we get started, we do take like 5 or 10 minutes to talk about the space weather news. So, Lyanca, what's going on in the space weather news today?
Wow. So we have got some interesting things going on. So the immediate thing that jumped into my awareness was a X-class solar flare that came as a 1.11. So you all just to take that in for a second, we were just talking about angel numbers, and of course we wear ours, but this one was light in the form of an angel number to really get our attention, and it's just truly flooding the earth with lots of light. And I'm going to read, this is going to take a second, but I'm going to read kind of a little bit of the energy works from Divine Energy Works on the August 14th Lionsgate portal. So just so that you have a little bit of reference, and I know a lot of people have been writing in and saying how this helps them. So just wanted to, always repurpose and reaffirm how we're feeling in our bodies. So as we continue on the ascension path after the Lionsgate portal has officially closed, these energies are still very active throughout the month of August. Lots of integration is required now, so we love that word, until we hit the next stage of our energetic portals in the fall for the Northern Hemisphere. On August 21st, our sun will be in the annual conjunction of Regulus. And the brightest star in the constellation, the Leo Lion. And we will be receiving further activation upgrades from the Lionsgate portal. Today's X-class solar flare has released plasma cloud that is headed toward the Earth, which is now, creating the force of creative transmutation, transformation, rebirth, and change. There is a major inner child clearing and healing happening right now as well in the heart of the current retrograde season. So be stronger than the retrograde, because we can stand firm. With 5 planets being concurrently in retrograde motion, we are coming into the energy of the rare blue super full moon in Aquarius, which will exactly square the great awakening or awakener, the Uranus planet of shock and breakthrough. On the same day as Jupiter will square Saturn, bringing drastic, radical, destined catalytic energy that will be reshaping the structure of our lives, further activating the timeline of the age of Aquarius and bringing quantum leaps and breakthroughs. Thank you, Divine Energy Works, for that really lovely report. And so just as we're heading into this conversation, please know, please ground, please just give yourself what I always say, grace. Give yourself grace.
Thank you. One of the things I wanted to talk about before we bring Lisa on is we do talk about these angel numbers, which seems kind of, cutie cliche. But what we found is if we see these numbers on the clock or on the license plate or wherever we see them, right? We then go and we ask questions. So we've started to do this journaling process to really say, okay, what does this mean? On one of the shows, Valentina just reminded me to talk about this because one of the shows, she kind of had this, she's like, I see these 111s a lot. And it really made her just kind of start anew, start fresh, and come from more of a beginner's mind, I would even say, right?
Yeah.
And she was sharing a little bit about that. And that's why she said 111 is now my favorite number. So I feel like that's the way that the angels watch us, right?
Yes. And communicate, because they're always trying to communicate with us. And so for me, Jeneth and I were laughing because we saw all the numbers, like all
Yesterday.
of them. And
like up to sixes.
yeah, and I was like, oh, the number I didn't see was 666. And I laughed because as soon as I was kind of like laughing about it, I saw this license plate that ended in the 666. And they all have really extraordinary meetings. And so what we have done is just really stopped ourselves and say, okay, what was I thinking of
at that time? You know, what was going on?
Or just ask the numbers and spirit guide, like, what do you have to share with me?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're seeing some angel numbers today, maybe we put some sparks in your heart.
Awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and just bring Lisa up now, or do you want to have another?
No, I think that's great. I think Lisa's going to be so extraordinary. So I think without further ado, let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, Lisa, we're gonna pin you up. It's like a pin up girl. Sorry, sometimes my mouth just.
Oh, we have fun here. That's what makes it great.
Lisa, hold on. A few more people to admit here. Lisa, welcome. You are muted.
I am. Sorry about that. I wasn't following the protocol.
Well, we started this conversation because I asked you, I said, what do most clients come to you and seem to be having problems with? And you said navigating their 5D reality. And I really thought it's almost, now that we're reaching this new earth, it's almost navigating our new 5D reality. And I thought, what a cool topic. And I know a lot of people on the line are resonating with that topic in particular. I would like to go ahead. I would like to just take an itty bitty time with you, just introducing yourself. I know you've got years and years of working with clients in the Akashic Records. Just kind of give us a little, wrap up nugget of how you really got interested in this work.
It was an accident.
I love it. Oh,
I didn't know what I was getting into. And, people ask me that all the time. And it really was an accident. I was my background is massage therapy. And at this particular time, I was the director of a massage therapy school. And one of my instructors, I was just chatting with her. She actually taught healing touch. And so she would keep talking about these different modalities that she did. And she brought up the Akashic Records. Now, with that being said, this was like in 2002. 2002. So
Gotcha.
over 20 years ago. And so she just mentioned that she does this thing called the Akashic Records. And she said, have you ever heard of this? I was like, well, no. What is this thing called the Akashic Records? And so we started talking about it. And she said, well, I do classes. I teach people how to open their records. And I was like, oh, that'll be fun. Just like doing it for the fun of it, thinking that, it's just, I'm using the term party trick. It's just something to do. And, it's just something that I get to experience. Little did I know, over 20 years later, here I sit. And not having any idea of what the Akashic Records truly were and the real life that is within the Akashic field. We have a tendency to read the very basics of what the Akashic Records are. And when I hear people describe what they are, usually it's a library. It has all of your histories in a book. And, it's so much more than that. And it's so much more massive. And it's this beautiful, beautiful field of love and compassion and caring and oneness, and it's where every one of us is connected to it. But we don't normally hear that part of it. And besides the fact that they have guides that reside there as well, they're called masters, the Akashic Records masters. And, it's the way that I hear people describe it, and the normal term is very superficial. And there's a lot more to it. And I think, Lyanca, you Aren't you an Akashic record?
Yeah. So Lyanca, it's
Sorry.
like the cheesy way to say it is like Bianca with an L is what I would say. And I do work in the records. And in fact, the records called out to me in a dream. I had always had them in my kind of, peripheral vision, like always out there, really hadn't ever dove in, still learning and on my journey as well. But I worked in radio and television, and radio, I worked on a hip hop station, and the word record showed up in the word, hip hop, and it was like an R&B, and the words R&B, but I knew already in my dream, and when I woke up and wrote it down, what exactly that message was, and it was to work in the records. And so I immediately went out and got books and teachings, and started to learn how to work with my own records.
Yeah, and so you understand what I'm talking about. The depth is
I do.
to a lot greater magnitude than what people present them as.
Well, this audience probably understands it pretty well. Yeah, we've done a lot of readings on the show, and people really understand how they work.
And I also feel like you have so much experience that I'm always the first to raise my hand and say, I don't know everything. There's so much more that is always being revealed. I'm learning as I go, and as more is showing to me, and as my allowance will allow me to have, right? Like, as sometimes when I first started working the records, it was a lot. I mean, it was a lot for me. And I'm just saying this also for other people that may have their reservations. But I'm always the first to say, I am, here to learn from you right now. Right.
Well, I'm here to learn as well. And I learn every single day. And, what's so interesting is that, every time that somebody has a question, and, I do private sessions. And so I do private readings every 6 days a week. And I have this incredible gift of being allowed to open other people's records and being able to see the truth of who they are from that soul level, that energetic. It's not the surface. It's not what the mind is. I get to see the core of who they are. And within that, people have the ability to ask these questions that they think are so simple. And I get these answers that I'm just like going, holy cow, are you kidding me? Excuse me, what? It's always. And, there's so much, and humans have no idea how magnificent they are. And I get the privilege of seeing that. And if I ever feel like I think I have all the answers, there's a problem. There is a problem. I learn every single day, every day. And I don't think that if there's ever a teacher that says they have all the answers, you might want to check into that, because the people that truly do this work understand, no, we're just the mouthpiece. And it's pretty much that simple. We just repeat what's being said to us.
Yeah. Well, I know that one of your biggest components of this work is the frequency of love. So why don't you dive into that, when, you really felt full of love, and how this kind of came through you?
Okay, so I mean, I like having 30,000 thoughts just going through my head.
Okay. And maybe we'll make that even clearer.
Yeah.
As a way of navigating the fifth dimensions.
Yeah.
Of this world. Yeah.
So what I found is that, over the years, this has been a long process. And, for those of us that are on this spiritual path, we do understand that the biggest blockage that we have of being connected to who we truly are is our minds. The minds, those belief systems, the stories, the conditioning, that's what filters out and disconnects us from the truth of who we are. So we all kind of have that understanding, right? Because you guys are shaking your head, so you get it. So, as I began this journey of finding out that there's more to who we are than just this physical presence. about 30 years ago. And I actually learned when I was a student of massage therapy, because I had these fabulous instructors that took us to this place of learning. We learned how to be intuitive. Those were the types of instructors that I had. We did intuitive massage. We learned to shut our minds off and listen.
Mhm.
Well, when I recognized that my mind is what's creating my reality, I also recognized that, okay, if I stopped telling myself what is and become quiet and allow the voices to come to me, all of a sudden, holy cow, this is a completely different experience and a reality. And I would hear the voices to perform the massage. And, it's like I was guided to put my hands certain places, hold certain positions, stuff that I was never taught to do. And at that point, I recognized that it's time to understand that this connection is within us always. And so that's really when I learned, okay, when is the mind controlling my life? When is the mind creating the stories? When is the mind making me feel insignificant or significant? When am I feeling like the victim? When am I feeling like this? Okay, so how much is the mind tied into all of this? So as I began to start peeling back these layers, and then all of a sudden, these things started opening up in my heart space. Being able to be quiet when I feel energy, I feel it in my heart. And again, that took some work. Being able to find that love that resides within it, you got to break down a whole lot of barriers to get to that point of understanding where this true unconditional love resides. And so as I went through this process, and again, you recognize this has been about 30 years of work. It didn't happen in a day.
So bless you for sticking through, right? And sharing it with us.
And it's every day. I'm having an issue that keeps coming up in my mind this morning. It's like,
I know.
When am I going to get through this? And so, but what the point is that, it was funny this morning because my morning thing this morning, I went and worked out. And, I realized I'm walking on the treadmill and I'm looking out the window and I'm looking at, the parking lot. And I'm sitting there and I'm feeling that what is this connection that we have with our hearts? And if I could literally take my brain and move it over here and really stay in alignment with what I feel when I can remove all of those stories and I can stand here, how does it make me feel? And at that point, when I'm sitting walking on the treadmill, doing my little thing, and it's like I could feel this beautiful love expanding and opening up and recognizing that I'm actually allowing my body to be consumed by this love. And what I find is that the way that we live our everyday lives is that we have a tendency to protect ourselves. You walk into a grocery store, you walk into public, and you put your little shield up and you start doing that. I call it the turtle position. You put your shell around you and you function in this mode without allowing yourself to truly stand in that place of love and open heart at all times. And so with this very long story that I just told you, there is actually a point
We love
to it. So, but what the point is that where we're moving to and what this fifth dimensional energy really is for us to be able to stand in this place of love and really be able to walk out into public with that openness, no shell. And being able to really feel your heart expand and run through your entire system and be able to go in public, to be able to live in this place of love and contentment, completeness, oneness, I amness, all of this 24/7.
Yeah.
And that is what my understanding is what is the fifth dimension. That's where we're moving to, being able to shed the old and be able to stand in this place of love 24/7.
Yeah. It's a kind of a no matter what and not giving the fuck kind of energy, right?
Yeah.
It's I have no point of view, and anybody's point of view that like shoots me in the heart, that's an interesting point of view. even. I'd like to ask the group, how many of you know the difference between when you're really being in that fifth dimensional frequency and when you're really just kind of contracted and doing life as the 3D? And if you want, even put in like the percentage of how much you feel like you're in that 5D. Because I feel like for me, I don't know about you, Lyanca, or you, Lisa, but I feel that I'm in it probably almost 20% now. If I would have to put a percentage.
20% of the 5D or
in
3D?
5D,
Okay, so you're
5D.
20% 5D.
Yeah, that
Yes.
sounds so sad, doesn't it?
And Mike, so that brings me to my question.
But at least I know the difference is what I'm
Yeah.
saying, you
Okay.
guys. You
Yeah.
know, and I would say, well, before I started this work in 2009, I don't know that I knew the difference. That's the difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Lisa, that brings me to my question.
Mm.
Are we operating in 5D sometimes and we just are not acknowledging it? And so having that awareness and being able to identify the difference could actually bring more of it. Can you speak a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, so this is my understanding. So if anybody's listened to anybody else in their perspective, I don't listen to anybody else. I live in my little world. Okay. So it doesn't hurt my feelings if you don't agree with this. But first of all, we are in the fifth dimension. And
Okay.
I think everybody understands that already. The fifth dimension energy is here and it has
Sure.
been for a very long time. That's why we're all so chaotic. That's why we're all just losing our heads because wait a minute, we're going from this side to this side to this side to this side.
Okay.
And so this is how I'm going to explain it the way that it usually comes to me. And then if I don't answer your question, I'll have to build on it. So basically, we are in this place existing on the earth in this fifth dimensional energy, very high vibration. But what's happening for us as human beings is that this energy is penetrating us. And the way that it's always described to me is that from the records is that we absorb this high vibrational energy and then it starts pushing up against this heavy 3D energy, which is heavier and denser. And we all understand, I'm assuming everybody on here understands. I don't think any of you guys are beginners, but that, that 3D energy is that heavy, dense, judgment, fear, hate, all of that stuff, that the energy that makes us miserable, really, basically, and separates us. And so as this high vibrational energy begins to penetrate us, it starts messing with this 3D energy. And so the way that I always see it, it's kind of like this is the 3D energy over here and this is the 5D. And the 5D energy is coming in and it's bumping up against that. It's that 3D. And so it's almost like the way that I'm seeing it right now. I have my records open, so I'm coming in and out of it. But the way that I'm seeing it now, it's like a dam. And so if there's a dam and the water just keeps hitting it and hitting it and hitting it, then eventually it's going to start to crumble and it's going to start to come away. But it's that it hits that resistance. And so what we're finding at this time, and we have been for probably about 4 or 5 years, is that this higher vibrational energy is coming in and it's pushing up against our belief systems. And it's pushing up against that 3D stuff. And then it's starting to create questioning of who we are. And so as we start looking at these old belief systems, why is the world in such opposite things? Why? Because it's creating the opportunity for us to look at who we are, the old belief systems, the judgment, the things that we may just be because our parents taught us to be this way or society taught us to be this way. So this new loving energy is bringing forward, what if you lived life a little differently? What if you actually didn't judge somebody because of the way that they looked? What if you didn't think about separating somebody because of the color of their skin, their religious beliefs, or whatever, their weight, or what, all these things that we just do because somewhere down the line we got conditioned to do. So all of this stuff, and you can see how clearly, my gosh, just since 2019, how many of these things have been brought up to the surface and put in front of all of our faces. And, so as we start looking and this stuff is getting put in our face, guess what? That 5D energy is pushing away that 3D energy. And so, because
can I take the conversation just a bit farther? Because I think we're really willing to go. I actually don't think that 3D is all the polarized points of view.
No.
Right? It's more than that, for one. Like, if you think back to the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, right? They were actually in a world that was more 3D everywhere. And they just lived their lives. And this judgment existed within them. And I feel that now that the earth is shifting and changing and consciousness is growing, that today, you're correct, this 5D energy is coming in, but I feel that it's also allowing us to perceive and receive from a lot more than just lightening up these dense feelings. So I just wanted to bring that into the conversation, and the conversation might still go on the same trajectory. But I thought it was important to really look at this as, we're awakening parts of our brain, our pineal gland, and other things like that, so that we can receive communications beyond what we've ever received before. And I believe that is a part of also going forth into 5D. So I just wanted to include that in the conversation.
And I agree with that. And, and if you begin
to, I just wanted to clarify.
Well, and again, I don't always touch on all points. So, thank you for all that. But, and you really look at, where we've come from. I mean, this conditioning has gone on for centuries. There's always been separation. I mean, if you look back, how far does slavery go back to?
Right.
How far back does control over one another go back to? And so, these ways of thinking and these ways of staying in our heads, have been conditioned within us for, thousands and thousands of years. So here we are today, and recognizing that everything is within us. And just like what you said, it's already there. We're just opening up and wakening up to our intuitive abilities. And I'm making light of this, but how do you think? I mean, do we really think that today is the first day that our guides ever spoke to us?
No.
No. I mean, this has been going on since the beginning of time.
Yes.
And
they were just like damned in the witches, right?
So you think about, so we have the ability, we've always had the ability. We are our souls that reside within every single human being that is existing upon this earth, and others, are directly connected to this infinite knowing and this infinite beautiful love. It is exactly who we are. But because of the way that we've been conditioned, I always call it, it's like it created the dam. And so what we did was we disconnected from that knowing and the truth of who we are, and that soul's knowing, and that high end. And we cut this off, and we just learn to live up here.
And glorified the brain, the mind, right?
Absolutely.
Right? And shut down, through programming and conditioning as well, any voices in our intuition that we received as the crazy person.
And again, going back to that structure and that control, and, and again, nobody thought they were doing anything wrong. It's just, it just is what it is. But where we are today is the undoing of all of that conditioning. And so to me, the way that I see it, and, Jennifer, if I'm saying this wrong, fill me in. I mean, help me understand. Because what I think is that, as we begin to let go of that mind control, then all it's doing is opening up the space for that truth to come to light. And what I'm seeing is like little sparks will start sparking, and they're regenerated. I mean, they've always been there, but they've been buried so deep that we haven't had the understanding to connect to what that is. And so that's how I see it. And so
I love that. I also think when we're hitting more of our innate rhythm, that we're in more of an ordered state and flowing with the universe instead of having stress and disease and things like that, that's disrupting that flow.
Yeah. Well, you just opened a whole nother door.
Well, it's all the same doors. It's all the doors to the 5D.
Yeah. So, going back to stress and disease, if you understand the body, which, I mean, a lot of us do, I'm sure there's a lot of energy workers out there. My massage background is, it's more of understanding how the systems flow. And the term disease, comes from our emotions, our mind's thoughts, what our mind creates. And, if you guys have an understanding of how emotions work and they get embedded into the body and embedded into the system, then you understand that this creates those diseases because it creates weak spots in the system. And the way that I always see it is it's like you have your light body, and then you have these little black spots that are throughout your body, and every little black spot that's an emotion, it's a weak spot. And so this allows this harmony to come into that area and causes the body to malfunction. So if we can understand how to let go of those emotions, those thoughts, those things that have kept us in these ways of being the victim or whatever, whatever it may be, when we can allow those emotions to be set free, to release from our body, then our body becomes more of that perfected light. It becomes more oneness. And so when we think about the entire body being able to vibrate at that vibration that was intended for us to resonate at, then the body's going to take care of itself much more easily than what it's done in the past due to what we've taken in.
Yeah.
And again, and it's all that creation and all that oneness. And you talked about the flow and how everything would go more in harmony. Well, when we let go of trying to make things happen, trying to look at what the future is supposed to bring, when we start letting go of control and we can really truly sit right here, right now in this present moment, then we can see the synchronicity in all things. You can see so clearly of how things unfold, how things were put in front of us, how the person 5 people over that I may not ever see was meant to cross the path of somebody that I'm going to have a conversation with 3 days from now, and how that conversation creates an outcome. This amazing thing.
Yeah. And let's talk a little more about how that we get out of control.
I was going to say, Lisa, that sounds so great in theory.
I know.
But for someone who has built my, legacy or claim to fame or whatever it is, and had success with all the control, it is so hard sometimes. And I say, take that out of my vocabulary, but it can seem so hard to relinquish and be like, I'm going to let flow.
Yeah. Surrender is impossible for some of us.
Or can feel.
It can feel.
And feel impossible for some of us.
Yeah. Well, and
what is the remedy?
Yeah. Well, I want you to know that I have lived this life. I mean, I've lived that control and staying in my head, living in this place. So before this actually became my profession, I was a realtor, and I was a realtor for 16 years. And I was a very successful realtor, and I worked my tail off, and to the point of physical exhaustion, physical and mental. Like at the end of real estate seasonal, so at the end of the season, I would literally spend 2 months on the couch. I can't function because I drove myself to, I can't even hardly take another step. I know this. I know that whole,
Yeah.
thing about, I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
But what I
Everyone has done
found,
that in their life.
yeah, and that's why we're sitting here talking, because,
Uh-huh.
we
Yeah.
have that thing that's inside of us to keep us moving forward. But
Mhm.
what I found is that when I got to this point, and basically it was the end of last year, it's like, I can't hardly function anymore. I can't get there. But, again, remember that I've been doing this work for 30 years. So I was probably a little bit more aware of when I would feel something coming in that would say, okay, I need to have more money in the bank. I need to have some form of security. And I recognize that looking back, this miraculous life, I've never done without. I have never been without. And so even when my mind would tell me the stories that you have to have more, I would have to take a minute and say, wait just a second. Every time that I get exhausted, my phone stops ringing. Gives me a time for break.
Mhm.
So then when I start figuring out that, okay, I think I'm rested now, then all of a sudden my phone will start ringing again. And, it's a pattern that I could see very clearly, but my mind didn't want to let go of. And so what I recognize is that the way that we start really letting go of these behaviors is to become aware of them. What are you doing that you get a knot in your stomach about?
Mm.
What is it when you're feeling like, I cannot take my kid to one more basketball game, and you feel like I've got too much on my plate. I can't sort the things out. I can't do all of this. And so I'm not happy in my job, this is the things that I keep hearing over and over and over again with the symptoms of moving into this 5D is that I don't like my job anymore. I am not happy with it. I used to love it, but I don't like it anymore. Old friends don't fit me anymore. The vibration is different. We don't communicate like we used to. I don't want to go out in public. I feel uncomfortable in restaurants because the energy around me, is feeling uncomfortable. Relationships, marriages, are ending because people are shifting and changing. We're all going into this way of recognizing that things don't fit anymore. And so as we begin to recognize that I'm getting a knot in my stomach over my way of thinking, of trying to be so attached to the future and what it's supposed to be, that I'm realizing that my body is physically reacting to it. Okay, wait just a second. Let me take a look at this and recognize that when I'm thinking that I have to have, in the real estate world, I have to have 50 sales by December, and I'm only at 30. I gotta do. And here comes that panic mode. Okay, wait just a second. Really, literally, what is happening to you on the physical level when you find that something's not fitting you, that something's not in the flow, that something that's throwing you off? With the more aware that we can become just in the simple process of recognizing how our body feels is a huge indicator. And okay, wait just a minute. Okay, so there's this thing called control and fear. And usually when we have this thing of control, a lot of times it's based on fear patterns. If you really look at it, it's okay, I'm a fear of failure. I'm a fear that I'm not going to meet a deadline. I'm fear that I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. I'm afraid that, I'm going to make somebody mad. So when we talk about fear, it's a very broad spectrum of where this comes in. And so if you can really start pinpointing, okay, I'm having a fear that I'm not meeting a goal that I set for myself. Okay, well, let's just think about this for a second. Who set this goal? Oh, I did.
Oh, I love this.
Can I change my own goal? Absolutely, I can. Who set that idea that I have to have a certain income? Oh, I did. Okay, let's look at this more realistically and recognize, okay, do I have to have the Maserati or can I drive the Toyota? Okay, let's think
And what's
about
my
this a little
point
bit.
of view about having to have the Maserati?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
good,
then
yeah.
Because it's like you've got some conditioning from this collective world
Yeah.
where you have to show something and prove something
Yeah.
to somebody probably outside of you,
Mhm.
which I think is fascinating work.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
conversation
And-
because it's so true.
Yeah. And so when we're talking about, like when you were talking about how we were in the 50s and that 3D energy, really that's what it is. It's if you don't live, in the $1 million mansion, which I live in Oklahoma, $1 million is a lot for a house. California, not so much. But, but if you live in the big house, then you're successful. If you have a certain job, then you're successful. If you don't, then you're not, you're put down. And if you really look at cultures all over the world, the caste system, how long, we really start looking how we have had these ideas put into our heads because of society that you're only successful if you do this. Make sure you have enough money in the bank because something can happen. These things that put those fear ideas that create our behavior. That's all what I call the 3D way of living. It's everything that we have been conditioned to stay in these states of existing in other people's oh my God, I just lost the word.
Yeah.
The idea.
Yes.
Of who you should be and who you shouldn't be. And then you start digging into. Yeah. And so then you start going into that point. Well, if I don't make, $100,000 a year, then I'm a failure. Okay. So then how does not living up to those ideas affect us? And so if I have this idea that I don't have the perfect job, I don't have the perfect house, I don't have the perfect 2.5 kids, I don't have the perfect husband, I don't have this, so therefore I'm a failure. When we know
not worthy.
Yeah. And so let's jump over here to the 5D. Guess what's important? None of that.
Yeah.
None of that. What's happy in the fifth dimension? Happy.
Yeah.
Frequency. What's the what is the fifth dimension all about? It's bringing forward this energy that's within us that is accepting of who I am. Self-love, recognizing that I can let go of what society feels that is acceptable and what's not. And so this is what we have to start looking at. So I think the original question was how do we let go of
surrender to it?
Control, surrender. And
and maybe we play a little bit with the audience and some Akashic work around this. Or wherever you're guided, or maybe we can do a group activation. What's really calling you?
So what would you like?
I mean, if you want to take some questions, we can do that, or we can do a group activation, whatever you think is.
What do you think what would contribute most to this?
We can do individual questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
There goes the
hands. All right, go ahead and raise your hand. Please ask a question, not go into story. I do understand that sometimes there is a little story, but just try to keep it more directed.
Concise
questions.
And I do want to let you guys know as well is that I'm in my own records. I am not in yours. So, if I was opening your individual records specifically, the answer may be slightly different. So we're going to go with the flow and we'll just go from there.
Right.
So,
before we do this, what would be one of your things that you would really invite in, maybe as far as people when they know that they're reacting, when they know they've got a point of view, when they know this about themselves? Is there one thing that you find can let that go? I usually mine is like go to questioning it myself. But I
Yeah.
was wondering what yours is.
So I'm going to let the records answer that because okay. So what we want you to understand is self-observation is of the greatest virtue. When you can begin to recognize that you're acting or reacting due to a past event that has happened in your life, you'll begin to recognize how to evaluate, look at, and set it free. What we want you to know is that the specific act that is in front of you at this particular time is not the culprit. You'll begin to understand that you can look at what is surrounding you and understand how patterns of behavior have created this specific incident for you to look at. What we want you to know is that the idea, the thought of this particular idea is of the unnatural nature. You'll begin to understand that the truth is the answers all reside within you, and you can look at and alleviate the pain and sorrow and suffering that you have created to the past actions and reactions. And this is a gift that is given to you at this particular time so that you can see things more than from what the mind is constructive and be able to see from the heart and the truth of who you are. And which, okay, so this is this is actually
that's good. That was a bunch of information. I feel like I need to transcribe that.
Yeah. So you understand. Yeah. So this goes back to I learn stuff every day.
Yes. Yes.
So,
yes.
but really what the point is in this is that, let's say you're at work and somebody confronts you on something and says you didn't do your job the way that it should be done. And then all of a sudden we start having this reaction of I'm a failure, I'm not good enough, or else we get defensive over the situation. Okay, that we have a tendency to look at that situation as the problem. That is not the problem.
You're the problem.
Yeah. Well, we're not
because of the constructs in your past.
Yeah.
And
so what's happened is that, if you roll back time and, unfortunately, it usually always goes back to our childhood, it always does, somewhere either you brought some kind of emotion or something in from a past life, or, it was due to the experiences that you had. Maybe something simple is that maybe at one time you had a teacher, and I'm seeing you had a first grade teacher that kept telling you couldn't write correctly. Back in the day, you actually learned how to write. It's not like how it is today. But it's that you just couldn't make the cursive A correctly, and they constantly said you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. And so at that time, it created the belief system that you couldn't succeed, that you always did it wrong, and you couldn't please other people. Now, obviously, it's going to be a lot more detailed than that. It's the very thing. So being told today that you've done something wrong or incorrectly, or that person wasn't satisfied, triggers all of that going back to that point of that first grade teacher saying you can't do this right. Okay, let me go back and look at that and really look at, number one, this feeling came from a time when I was 7 years old and I had no power or control over who I am or what I can do. And I had to conform to exactly what that person was saying. Okay, wait just a second. Let me unravel that. Let me work through my emotions, my belief systems about it. Now, how am I reacting in my everyday life when a friend says you did something wrong, or your husband said you didn't do this right, or whatever it may be, your boss or whatever, and you all of a sudden you feel everything tighten up inside of you and you start reacting to whatever it is, then you can start recognizing, oh, maybe I just need to have a conversation with the person and ask them what they really want. And then being able to maneuver through that and see that, oh, maybe I just misunderstood what they were asking. And so, no, I'm not really a failure. I just didn't understand what they were saying. And so this is what they were referring to, and being able to go down and break down what and how we're reacting from what the mind has created.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and take some callers and go from here. This is a great leading spot.
Great.
Shara, you're up.
Oh, hey. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if you can answer this or not, but I was going to ask, what is one thing I can do today to move me closer to my goal?
Okay. So, Shara, tell me what your full name is.
Shara Lynn Dehoff Federley.
What we want you to understand is that there is a closeness to the heart, And what we want you to recognize is that the heart has been painful. And we want you to know that this can be relieved by allowing yourself to stand forward in the truth of who you are and recognize that you can let go of the past pains. The past pains have held you in construction, but what they're meaning is basically confinement or staying in the same patterns. And so what we want you to understand is that when you begin to truly recognize who you are as a human being and allow the human construct to fade away, you'll begin to recognize that the light that lies within you will begin to guide you in a more fluid manner. And this is what we want you to understand today. Now, does that make sense to you?
It does, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you. All right,
Thank you.
Alexa, you're up.
Hi. So what you spoke about, let's say I know what I wanted to ask about was my self-sabotage behaviors. And I know where it comes from. I just don't know how to stop them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, tell me what your full name is, Alexa.
Alexis Harrison.
What's your middle name?
No, there's no middle name.
Okay. Okay. So, and again, I don't want to get too personal, so please forgive me, but I'm going to say what's coming to me. Did you have some abuse as a child?
Yes.
Okay. So what we want you to understand is that the abusive behavior that surrounded you created the idea of thought that you did not deserve more than what you were. What we want you to understand is that the belief system that you should hide or feel small, and what I'm seeing is that basically you're kind of doing this to kind of protect yourself. When you begin to recognize that you can stand up and no longer stand in the fear that was created around you or within you at that particular time of your life, you can begin to understand that you can gradually step out 1 foot at a time and begin to trust what is given to you. We want you to recognize that in the most significant nature of who you are, you must find joy. Find the joy and the light that lies within you so that you can move forward in the truth of who you are. And what I'm seeing is that it really starts with self-love. And it starts with the fact, and I'm seeing you like you're walking into a bakery. And what I'm seeing is that, I'm going to do something for me today. And I'm going to allow myself to buy a pastry. And I shouldn't buy pastry because it has lots of sugar in it. And it's not good for you. But you know what? I'm going to love me. And I'm going to walk in and I'm going to take whatever I want. And I'm going to buy it and I'm going to eat it and I'm going to savor it. And it's going to be special. And why did I do that? I did it to recognize that I feel love. And what we want you to understand is that the ability to feel your own love is needed at this particular time. When you recognize that you can love yourself and you can move forward in that knowing, you will allow yourself to reap the rewards of what has been given to you and what will be given to you. And this is what we want you to know today. Now, does that make sense to you?
Thank you. Yes,
Okay.
thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Fabulous. We did have a question that was direct to me from Surrender Core, and she says she's been laid off and needs guidance on what to do now career-wise. Can you read from just that question? Do you need to see the spelling of her name or anything like that?
Tell me again what her name is.
Surrender. It's
Hi there.
S.
I can speak up.
Okay, go ahead.
Surrender Core.
Okay.
That's a pretty name.
Hello.
Okay. So you were laid off and you want to know what direction?
Yes, please.
Recognize that the path that you were on was not suited for you. But what we want you to recognize is that the door is opening in a different direction where you can find more heart-related activities that allow you to grow in a way that you can't see today. So what was your profession? What'd you get laid off from?
Medical administration.
Okay, because that's what I was seeing you as a medical practitioner. And what we want you to understand is that was not in alignment with who you are today. And what I'm seeing is that did you have some conflict with kind of like the Western medicine practices?
No, not at all. I was actually quite enjoying my job.
Okay.
I'm going into like healing modalities now. So I've signed up for Reiki healing and QHHT. I'm wondering if that is the right path
Yes.
for me.
Yes. And that's what I was seeing. And that's what I was saying is because that form of like the pharmaceuticals and that type it's not in alignment with you, and that you were going into more of that more natural nature of who you are and that natural healing. And yes, and recognize that this is significant for you to understand that this is the path for you to take. When you begin to recognize that there are many modalities that you will succeed at, you'll begin to recognize how this is much more in fluidity and fluent with the energetic patterns that have been created within you. And this is what we want you to know.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're welcome.
All right, Manisha, you're up.
Thank you. Hi, Lisa. I really resonated with the answers to the first two callers.
Mhm.
My question is this, excuse me. How can I get past all the hurt and betrayal that I've received in my life, which is like just, my heart is full of a lot of pain, actually.
And what we want you to recognize is that there are different types of pain that are lying within you, meaning resting within you. What we want you to know is that it's extremely important for you to evaluate each form of pain. And what I'm seeing is that there's grief, like there may be some pain from like somebody's death, maybe somebody that was significant to you that maybe passed away. So that's a form of heartache. We also want you to recognize that there have been lost loves, like relationships. And I'm seeing that this may even go back to when you were younger, having a relationship with somebody that didn't pan out. And at that time, it was very hurtful to you, and you're still holding on to those pains. But what we also want you to recognize is that there have been many behaviors of others that have made you feel as if you were insignificant. We also want you to understand that the actions and the reactions of who you are and who they are things that need to be looked at so you can recognize that you are no longer subservient to others' behaviors. We want you to know that the ability to let go of the past and stand in the present is of significant importance. We want you to see that allowing yourself to move forward and away from what once was is of the utmost importance in order for your heart to heal. We want you to understand that forgiveness is of a great magnitude and can help the individual heart grow in a way that you may not currently understand. We want you to understand that there have been no failures. You see yourself in a way that has provided the idea that you are not significant, and this isn't so. We want you to see that the love that resides within you is of a great magnitude, and you will allow others to see that love and that light when you gain the understanding of the truth of who you are, which is of the utmost love that is capable. Now, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, yes, absolutely does. So the pain that you're talking significant is father, ex-husband.
Yeah.
And recently my mom has passed away. So maybe that's what you could see.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's a
Wow,
multitude of
really
things
good.
there. So good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
fabulous.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you. We do have we have someone that has voice things, and she did ask a question. I don't know if you can see the chat, but there's a.
I can read it. It's
Go ahead.
hi. It's from Karen. It's hi, it's Karen Julie and McCarney. A similar question is how to free myself from my physical restrictions at the moment in talking in talking, traveling, and eating, I realize I hold painful memories held in from possibly that's
My abusive past.
my abusive past, but it's how I can continue to let go. Please, bless you, if you can just read the question for me, and I will be grateful. Once again, she was telling us that. So the
Okay.
name is Karen Julie McCurney.
Okay, I have to look in, we got to narrow that question down a little bit. I think I need it a little bit more specific. Okay, so how
Talking,
to free
traveling,
myself from my physical restrictions at this moment.
So the physical restrictions are talking,
Okay.
traveling, and eating. She had an
Okay.
accident that doesn't allow for her to speak and to travel and to even eat.
Okay. Okay. What we want you to understand was, can she? Gosh. Okay. I'm seeing that there was something. It was like an accident, like a car accident or something that was physical trauma. Is that what the accident?
Karen, can you respond to some of these questions?
But I do know Karen, because she's been on the show. I do know that yes, that there was an accident.
Okay. Okay. And so what we want you to understand that
Diving accident.
The harm that took place to the physical body was a realignment of who you once were in creating the new persona or person that you will become. What we want you to recognize is that the physical ailments that you are currently incurring are of the physical nature. The energetic blockages that are coming to you, or that are basically blocking the healing, is coming from the past relationships with yourself. And what we want you to know is we want you to understand how to look at how your voice was stifled and you couldn't speak freely. They're saying you've been restricted in your way of movement from childhood into the present moment, basically meaning that it's like you weren't allowed to go certain places. You were basically confined to, and like what I'm seeing is like it as a child, sometimes you can only play in the yard. You can't go across the street. You can't see things that are different. And so you had restrictions around you that kept you limited from exploring and seeing things in a different way. And so what we want you to understand is that this is shifting and changing. We're wanting you to see that your mind is opening up to new possibilities that are creating ideas and thoughts and breaking down the old beliefs that were keeping you confined and holding your voice in. This is creating a different way, or a difference in who you are on the energetic pattern, as well as the belief systems that you can only do so much. We're wanting you to understand that you're being put in a position to shift and change your consciousness so that you can begin to live your life in a way that you have not before. Allow the freedom to come forward and stand in the truth of who you are without the restrictions of others. Okay? And I hope that, I can't see her message, but I sure hope that helps.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, I hope it makes sense.
All right, let's go ahead and take one more, and then we will wrap up. Maz.
My
Hi.
friend Mose.
Hi, Lisa.
Mose, sorry.
It's okay.
Nobody knows how to pronounce it. Anyway,
Eh.
my question is that I am slowly learning how to transform fear from something negative into positive, like refusing to go with the fear and then trying to have a stronger outcome for what I fear. But I was wondering, because that is a possibility, does it make sense to delve deeper into trauma, or do you think it's better to go for a more like 5D modalities?
Mose, tell me your full name again.
Mirjam Marlotte Jacobs. MIRJAM MARLOTTE Jacobs.
So they're saying you are so lovely, and your heart is of the gold nature. And we want you to understand that the past fears that have occurred are diminishing. You're doing well, and you recognize that you have let go of a lot of old past beliefs. We want you to recognize that you are moving into this fifth dimensional energy rapidly. It's coming to you full force, and you'll begin to recognize that your head is spinning. You're having trouble deciding in what direction to go due to that letting go of the things that cause fear. Is it's almost as fearful to let it go as it is to stay in it. So it's like, okay, I'm afraid to move forward because this is comfortable and I feel protected when I'm staying here. And so if I move forward, then it's scary. So there's fear again. And so what you're recognizing is that you're doing the tug of war with holding on to what you know and what you have believed in, and recognizing that truth of who you are and who humanity is can shift and change without holding on to that past. So what we want you to recognize is that as you truly evaluate what is coming to you in the form of fear, begin to weigh both sides of what you're fearing if you let that idea go. Yeah, you understand what I'm saying?
Sort of, yes. When
Okay, so with, it's they're saying there's a fear of trauma, meaning there's a fear of they're saying not only physical retribution, but also things that can be embedded in your mind, like person's words. What they say to you or how they react if you do a certain thing. Okay, now does that make sense to you?
Yes, that is true.
Okay, so that's a little bit more specific. So when you're looking at, okay, I'm afraid to do this because I'm afraid of the retribution that will come at me, the words or the actions, then begin to really look at, wait a minute, why am I afraid of this? Because this is the past belief system that they're going to act or react in a certain way that may cause you physical harm, or it's going to mess with your mind.
Yeah.
And make you feel that you're a failure or something's up here. And so what we want you to understand is that in order for you to get over that idea of, and I understand that I've worked with Mo's before, so I understand where your background is. And so it's that point of really looking at the physical trauma and being able to see, okay, if this is a reality for me, and if I'm going to do this, what am I really afraid of if I get beat up? What am I really afraid of if somebody actually hits me? What's the worst case scenario? And then as you begin to look at that, recognize, okay, well, how can I work through this to be able to stand in my power and not stand in the fear of the retribution? Okay. And they're saying, and it may be an idea that you're looking at a specific situation with only one outcome. And maybe that's not the only outcome. Maybe there's a different way that you can go about the situation that wouldn't create that same outcome, but you're not allowing yourself to see a different path. And what I'm seeing is that walking through a forest, you see a forest, and there's many ways to get from one side of the forest to the others. There's lots of trees that you can maneuver around, to get to the other side. There's lots of different paths you can go. So recognize that the ability to stay open and be able to see with the vision of all paths, you can begin to recognize which is the best path to take that will help to alleviate the fear of the pain result.
Okay, so in a way you're talking about different timelines, that we all have different timelines available to us.
No, I'm talking about right here, right now.
Okay.
Right here, right now, in this present moment. There's always, whenever there's a problem, there's never just one way to get to the solution. There's numerous ways. And so when you really look at if I'm trying to solve a problem here, and this is the only path that I can see, I have to do this. But if I do it this way, then they may come at me verbally or physically. Then I'm not liking that result. That's not fun. So if I can see a different way to get to that end result that might not lead to that same reaction from whatever, a result of whatever I'm trying to accomplish, maybe there's an easier path or a different path that you can go that won't have the same result of what you're fearful of.
Okay, thank you very much.
Does that help?
I hope so. I think it will.
Okay. Okay, good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Lisa, we've just kind of hit time here, so I'd like you to give them where they can find more about you.
And obviously we have to have you back too.
I
Like,
know.
gosh, if you want to play again.
Yeah,
Good.
and you guys,
Amazing.
we meet every Tuesday and Thursday right now, same time, same place. If you do, we have readings quite regularly if you are, wanting to seek and pursue. But Lisa, go ahead and share. I would love for them to know where they can get you and find you.
Yeah.
And
Well, my website is lisawetzel.com, and make sure you see how you spell Wetsel. It's an S, not a Z.
Okay.
So lisawetzel.com, and I have all kinds of videos on there, but you can also schedule private sessions on the website, and that's how you would do that. But in addition to the website, I also have a YouTube channel that has some videos on it as well. And I also, I just started a podcast a couple of weeks ago, a month
Yay.
ago. My podcast is very different than this. And what it's about is basically healing. And being able to, people that have gone on these spiritual journeys, and, just like you said, we're always looking for tools to figure out how to let go of stuff. So these are thoughts and ideas and people that have used different modalities to help heal. And so it's just kind of an
Nice.
introduction for that. Okay.
Yay.
Yeah, fabulous.
Lisa, it's
You
been
guys.
amazing having you, and you're so direct. I think it's amazing just watching you work as a novice to the actual, to your 20 years of experience. So I'm so honored to have been able to witness that as well.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a
So
pleasure
clear.
being here. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys, before you go, we just have a couple announcements. One of them is I want you to know that if you want all these interviews forever, all collected in a one big group, even the future sessions
And summits.
we do offer the entire program to sign up for $47. So we will have that in the next email. We also have a healer haven and lounge, and it's $37 a month. And it's really for you guys that want to come into a small group twice a month and get group facilitation. It's like group therapy. Plus, since we're both healers, we often will go down those topics as well. And we talk about healing and experiences.
You also
like
get all of the speaker summits.
And you'd also get all the calls that we've ever done. And you also get priority when asking a question. So if you're ever on a large call where a lot of hands are raised and you want to go first, we always choose our healer circle first. You also get 10% off speaker special offers. We didn't have a special offer today, but wanted to include that as well.
Yes. You can always write us. And if you want to know more about that, you can catch that on howtussle.com. Or you can just send me a message at team@howtussle.com.
Also, a reminder, we do stream a lot of these, not all of them, on YouTube. So if you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe. We love to have you a part of our group.
Yeah, let us know what you're thinking.
Yeah. All right, you guys have a wonderful weekend. We will see you next Tuesday.
Love
Bye
it
for
too.
now.
Bye.